Sri Aurobindo's words, there are many ways of opening to this divine consciousness or entering into it. My way, which I show to others, is by a constant practice to go inward into oneself, to open by aspiration to the divine, and once one is conscious of it and its action, to give oneself to it entirely. So what does Sri Aurobindo say? How do we open to the divine consciousness? To go inwards. Now, how do you go inwards? The simplest, it's so simple, a child can do it, to constantly try and keep the mother's image as a background. Whatever you're doing, see her face within you. I'm telling you, you'll walk life with a different step. If constantly you make it a discipline to refer, there's nothing to think about, instead of wasting time on useless thoughts, let me concentrate on her. Mothers made the path so simple, like going within earlier was silencing the mind and all, which is difficult for a lay person. But for every child of the mother, it's so easy to remember her and love her, isn't it? So it has to go inside, that's all you need to do. You need to remember her and love her. But all the time, not just when you're in Pandi, not just when you come to Sarkar. So, is to go inwards into oneself, to open by aspiration to the divine. What should the aspiration be? I want to love you constantly. I want to give myself to you constantly. And once one is conscious of it and its actions, to give oneself to it entirely. This self-giving means not to ask for anything, but the constant contact or union with the divine consciousness. So that's a far off thing, because right now most of our relationship with the divine is asking for help and support, isn't it? But that's also legitimate, because when we ask and we receive, that's how we believe, right? That's how we develop a relationship with the divine. But eventually it comes to a point where you trust the divine so much that you don't need to ask anything. You just know that whatever the divine will do, it will be for your best. And you're just in a state of self-giving. Take my thoughts, take my emotions, take my life. All this is yours, I'm giving it to you. Then there is no question of praying for anything or asking for any support, but that's a later on stage. Right now, if my strength is in asking for support from the divine and praying to her, nothing wrong with that at all. But to know that there is something beyond that also which I can evolve to. If one can once open and feel the divine force, the power of the spirit working in the mind and heart and body, the rest is a matter of remaining faithful to it, calling for it always, allowing it to do its work. What does it mean to remain faithful to it? Faithful to the power of the spirit working in the mind, heart and body. What does it mean to be faithful to it?
You offered it to her. Then whatever the idea comes, you do it. You don't put your will.
Okay. So whatever but sometimes it can be your mind also. You have to be sure it's coming from her. What else?
To be consistent in your effort, not to divulge in other ways.
To be consistent in your effort and to not sacrifice her for fulfilling the moment's desire. Na? When we are chasing our desires, we so easily forget her. That online shopping, this something, that something. And we are in the midst of all that, we completely forget her, right? So, to be faithful to her is whenever I'm fulfilling a desire and it's blinding me, to first remember mother and to remind myself, but I want the mother more. Then I still want to fulfill the desire, let me fulfill it. But deep down, I always want the mother more than anything, right? Since the beginning of time. So there was a beautiful poem called The Temple, where the poet is saying that this temple, where she's referring to herself, it's got this imperfection and that imperfection and this and that, but still come. I know the temple is very imperfect and unworthy of you, but still come. For there is something deep within which has not stopped loving you for one moment in time. So the poet is recognizing that I know on the surface I'm all this, but deep down I have something which has never stopped loving you for one moment in time. And by the right of that love, I'm asking you, come. So in Savitri, there's a beautiful line, love is man's lien on the absolute. Lien is right. Love is man's right to God. However imperfect man is, if I love God, I have a right to him. So, it's in always remembering that there's something deep within me that has not stopped loving the mother for even one moment in time, and something deep within me which always wants the mother more than anything else. So there's a very beautiful story about Mirabai. I don't know if I've shared it, but Mirabai used to always sing beautiful songs. And although she was a Rajput Maharani, she threw open the doors of her temple to anyone, because anyone who loves Krishna can come. So she didn't keep parda, for which her in-laws used to really give her a lot of grief, but she didn't care. And once she was singing in the temple, and there was a Harijan, an untouchable, who was sweeping outside. And from far away he heard, and he had real love for Krishna, and it was a Krishna bhajan. And like in a trance, he started sweeping closer and closer and closer to the temple, until he reached the step of the temple. And the pujari saw him, and for those days the pujaris, if the shadow of a Harijan felt on you, you had to have a bath and all that. So very rudely he shouted at him and threw him out. Mirabai didn't know this all had happened. Now every night she would offer bhog to Krishna, prasad, lock up the temple, go, and in the morning there would be fingerprints. It's a known fact, as if Krishna would have eaten it. Now next morning when she came, the prasad was untouched, and Krishna used to come alive and talk to her. We all know that. He taught her songs and bhajans and all that. But that day it remained a stone statue, and Mirabai was very upset. She really prayed, but he didn't come alive, and then she saw big tears rolling down the statue's face. So then Mirabai asked him that, what is it, Krishna? Why have you turned your back on me, and why are you crying? So Krishna says, this is not my temple anymore. I'm not going to dwell here anymore. So Mirabai said, why? What have I done? So he said, there was a devotee of mine who had true love for me, who wanted to come to me, and I was the one who was pulling him closer and closer. It was my flute that he heard. Otherwise he wouldn't have the guts to, because he knows the consequences of it. And your pujari turned him away so wildly that I'm not going to be here anymore. So what I'm saying is, if anything untoward is, like in a very metaphorical way, Mirabai could be the psychic being of that temple, no? And the pujari could represent the vital, that part of us which is rigid and conditioned. So Mirabai is there, she's singing to Krishna. But if there's a part of us which doesn't treat humanity well, or is given to the lower nature, then the idol can't stay there. No matter how many rituals and pujas you do, you need the whole temple to be cleansed and consecrated to the divine. Otherwise, the divine presence doesn't show itself.